Here. Amy, here. Chris,
Here.
Ed,
Here.
Dan,
Here.
Megan, here. Cool. All right, pledge of allegiance. Hello, watching. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My mic wasn't even on. All right, approve the meeting agenda.
Agenda.
Second.
On favor?
Actually, there's a minor update, and that's okay. It's not going to change the agenda, but we do have one last minute invoice that came in.
Okay.
But we can go over that in item number 8.
Cool. Meeting minutes from March 25th.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oops. Okay. No old business. Next is new business for 124 East Staat Street, commission to hold a public hearing on the declaratory resolution and amendment to plan to adopt the confirmatory resolution number
Well done.
2024 4A. They're big words.
All right, so for this particular item, this is something that is required under state law. For the purchase of 124 East Staat Street, the old Hughes Funeral Home. That's because it's, the property was not in the TIF district, but its purchase contributes to the TIF district. So you basically need to do a few different ministerial type things in terms of passing resolutions. And anytime you make changes to contributing properties into the TIF, you have to do a declaratory resolution and then a confirmatory resolution, which basically confirms that, think of it almost like as a preliminary resolution, a final resolution. So the resolution has gone to town council, it's gone to the plan commission, and back in February, you all looked at that declaratory resolution. So the last piece of the processing puzzle per state law is just to hold a public hearing to see if the public has any issues with the proposal. And then you're free to adopt this RDC resolution, which will button up the matter. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those. And Alex is on the line as well.
So we open it up to the public
Correct.
now. Public? Anything to say?
Total public.
Adam, do you know if the environmental work's been done? I know we had that in front of us last time. Has that all been completed or so?
As in terms of the environmental work, there was a phase 1 environmental site assessment that was done a few years ago when that property transferred to the owners that the town bought it from. And so we could have used EPA grant money to do a new site assessment. However, it was quicker and cheaper, frankly, in this case, just to contact that same company that did it, have them refresh it and issue it. And the bottom line is there are no findings in there that would cause any issues.
That's what I'm.
Yeah.
To approve the public hearing on a declaratory resolution and amendment to the plan as presented to us.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So now we have to do another one to adopt the confirmatory resolution. Is that correct?
That's it. If you've, in that action, I think you took action to approve that resolution, right?
Okay.
2024 4A, so you're good to go. We'll just need to have that signed. Yes, please. And if you'd be so kind as to sign those meeting minutes
Yeah,
too.
that's view of financials.
Adam, did everything work out with the transferring of money for the facade program?
Yes, I've updated the remaining financial commitments or liabilities form that we have to account for that.
Okay, thank you.
Adam, did you say we want to add the Samco systems? That, I'm sorry, that's next.
That's an
next.
invoice.
My bad.
Looking for a motion on the financials.
Motion to approve, the review of financials.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, invoices.
So this particular invoice is related to the property purchase of 624 East High Street. Of course, that property was purchased for right of way to be able to put in the future South Madison Boulevard. And if you'll recall, as part of the negotiations with the Wilkinsons, the owner, the RDC agreed to pay for up to $5,000 in moving expenses, and that's what this invoice reflects. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
And if I could add one more thing, this invoice they have not actually done this work yet. And so what we're asking the RDC to do is to approve this invoice subject to the work actually being done to remove the property. And we're told that that should happen by June 1st. If they don't do the work and the property is not out of there by June 1st, we'll take a look at our options there. But I just wanted to be clear that this has not been done yet. But we're looking for authorization so that Missy can issue the check once the work is done.
Is this a final amount or will there be like an
It is.
itemized?
It's a final amount, and the
Okay.
way that the order, so the order that the court issued was intentionally drafted and written that the town would pay up to $165,000. $160,000, which was the value of the property, has already been paid and issued to the Wilkinsons. This $5,000 is the last remaining piece, and if they actually pay someone to move the property out of there, then we'll issue the check, which is the invoice you have. If they don't actually do that, then we won't issue the $5,000. We'll see what other options we have and take the property over.
So Alice, this is Dan. So if it ends up being, I see 32 hours, et cetera. I mean, if it they end up with less than this, we're still paying the 5,000. Is that what I'm hearing?
I want to see it. No, and great question. I want to see an itemized. They actually spent that much time. I know this was sent to us as an estimate.
Right.
I want to see
Okay.
the final invoice. So if it's $10,000 to move, if it's double it, okay, that's fine. The town will pay 5,000 and the Wilkinsons can cover the other 5. But yeah, no, I will ask for and insist on a final invoice to account for this before we have Missy issue the check.
Okay,
I think that's what I was looking for.
that's what I was
Yeah.
asking. I don't think I did a
Again,
good job.
This is basically a
Yep.
quote. They're gonna come in
below this, but they're coming over it, our exposure is limited to $5,000. So that helps me to get a better understanding of it. Thank you.
Correct. Yep, not to exceed $5,000 based on the invoice estimate you have in front of you.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we pay the invoice 1282-4716 when the job has been completed, not to exceed $5,000.
I'll second that, Ed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment. Staff comments.
The only thing that I would mention is Terry Lee from BCA is here tonight. BCA is the town's consultant overseeing the EPA grant that we received a few years ago for phase 1 environmental site assessment. So I think Terry maybe just came to tell the board and essentially the community about the grant and how it can be used. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, feel free to, if you wanted to. Let me just turn on one thing there.
That's right.
As Adam said, I'm Terry Lee. I'm with BCA Environmental. We're the firm that works with the town on the EPA grant funds. We still have close to $300,000 left that has to be spent by basically September of 2025. So where that can be really used by the town is if the town's taking a property or acquiring a property and you need that due diligence done, you need the phase 1 and phase 2, and maybe even the remediation plan completed if there are issues, then EPA is willing to pay for that. They pay us to do it and come out, do it for you, do it for the property owner, do it for the developer, do it for the buyer, whatever the case may be. So please do your due diligence on your environmentals. It sounds like you are with the funeral home property already. So make sure you do that on properties that you're taking over or acquiring. Let the grant come in and take that. Could be anywhere from 3,000 to who knows. I've worked with a community on the west side of the state. The town actually gave them property in downtown as an incentive for development there. And then I talked to the developer afterwards and he pulled $70,000 out of his pocket for phase 1 and phase 2 environmental investigations that he didn't need to. The town just didn't communicate to him that they had the grant. So he was a little upset to hear that, but he got some free property from the town anyway, so it worked out. But keep it in mind, both for the town, if you're acquiring, but then also for developers, property owners, purchase situations. Typically, it's used when I want to buy your property and I want to know what happened there 50 years ago. As I just drive Broadway and areas between like Mill and Staat Street and around, I mean, there's definitely some properties that are legacy kind of, potential environmental issues. The idea with the phase 1 is it can like go, oh, we need to go to a phase 2. The grant pays for both. Phase 2 says, oh, you're really pretty good. No problem. Let's clear it out and transact it and redevelop it. Or phase 2 could say, we have some things we need to work with here. And then we like to work with the town or the buyer or the property owner to find additional funds that might help get it cleaned up as it needs to be. So Adam has my contact information. He's my point of contact here. So obviously he's in a position to, if you guys come across anything, if the council comes across anything where it could be utilized, then contact us and we'll get the work done for you quickly. And we'll do it right. And we'll provide that to you or whoever the end user would be. So any questions, glad to answer. It was just over 300,000 to begin with, and we're around 280, I think now, or 290 now. So the way EPA works is if you if you spend up to 70% of the funds 12 months before the end of the grant period, which will be September 2025, then you could reapply. We probably won't get there. But I mean, kind of the last thing we want to do is let the funds go back to EPA. They don't like to see that. So like in the future, if you were looking for like a multi-purpose grant, which can do assessment and remediation, you wouldn't want it to be like shown that you had an assessment grant and didn't spend the funds. No pressure, but about $280,000 to spend between now and the end of September 25, unless we ask for an extension. So that's right. Yeah. And this, it could be as I drive Broadway, there's several places that were former auto garages or gas stations that haven't been redeveloped yet. Good use of the funds. Yes, absolutely.
The only thing that I would add is that the phase one studies have a shelf life to them. And so, if we were to do it
180
soon.
Yeah, 180 days typically.
Yeah.
And it's like the funeral home situation you said earlier, if we've done it and it's kind of on the shelf, but we're 360 days out, then it would be really easy for us to come back in. Like if there's a closing coming up 30 or 60 days, it's really easy to just come back in and refresh it instead of starting from ground zero. Right. And if it helps the property owner market the property or a buyer to feel comforted, then that may kind of add to your capital stack and expedite the deal.
Be used in conjunction with any good funding.
Yes, sir.
I know.
Sounds like quite a bit. So glad to work with that. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Thanks for hearing from me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
Nothing else for me unless you have any questions on anything.
Board comment?
Yes, I have something I want to bring up. You'll notice in front of you, you got the facade repair program guideline. And the reason I'm bringing this up is for our new members on the commission here. I'd like you to review this and look at it. And if you see any additions or corrections that you feel it needs to be done as new eyes looking at it. I have some questions myself. If you look at item 3, who does the checking on the applicant for this, Adam? And is it done?
Well, I would say that it is something that we should probably do. I don't know that
I'm not trying to, start a new guidelines of who does what, but it's just something that I see. And is this letter just a scare letter, or are we following through with it? And take item 4, says lien holder may not be delinquent on property taxes. Well, we don't do that. Owner cannot be in bankruptcy. We don't check on that. And then it says, item 7, it says must maintain ownership for 7 years after repair. Do we keep a record of that? And who would enforce that?
That one we talked about as that we probably can't really enforce it, but we can. I remember having a conversation about that one,
Okay.
that would be our plan, but as far as enforcing it,
Yeah.
that would probably
Yeah, I mean,
not seem like a reasonable thing. So yes, we don't want people flipping, but if someone were to not do that and then they applied on another property, then maybe we stop the next one because they didn't pay back from the prior.
What gets me is all these items on here is all well and good, but we need to follow through with them. My estimate.
yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's a good reminder that, you know, I probably should be looking at those things, when we go to present something.
I
to
mean,
you.
a lot
Just
of
double
times
check,
we-
make sure that,
We don't know the applicant
Right.
personally.
right,
We don't know his history.
for sure.
So I think this thing should be looked at and decided. Alex, are you still there?
I am.
Are you familiar with what we're talking about here?
I am.
How do you feel about the it being a legal document to enforce, or?
Yeah, I think that we could memorialize these terms in an agreement between the grant recipient and the town that would be enforceable. Now, the question is typically, I mean, if you're talking about a $10,000 grant and somebody breaches one of the terms of the agreement, cost you way more than $10,000 to go after them. And we'd look at it, but absolutely, we can put these terms in an agreement and have something formal that if someone breaches the terms, we would have at least the ability, a greater ability to seek legal remedies to enforce the town's position and get the funds returned. Plus attorney's fees is what I would want to have in there as well.
Okay, I was just, I looked at this last time and there's a lot of things on there I understood that probably weren't being done, and I just wanted to address them. And as far as our commission or our board members here, I'd like you to take this home and look at it and study it, and maybe we can put it on the agenda for next month and discuss it more formally.
If I can add on, because I did take a chance to look at this at lunchtime today. I mean, the things you talked about, can't be delinquent on your property taxes, lien holder can't be delinquent, bankruptcy, active litigation with town. It's almost like some of these, we want to have a policy and procedure on how it's going to be done and who's going to do it.
Right.
It's one thing to have it here, but then it's laying out the steps of how it's going to be done and where the records are going to be kept. I don't think that should be a legal document, but it also should be an internal document for the staff here. That's where I was looking at.
Yeah.
So just thoughts, and we can talk about it in more detail next month, but that's
Yeah, I
where I
think-
was.
Like with this, the 7 years, like if they don't return those funds, then, or violation of this means that they can't ask for funds in the future or something along those lines, so that like maybe that becomes our enforcement, that if we have someone that's essentially flipping properties in town, using town money to flip them, selling them and then doing more, then like maybe we stop funding their projects in the future.
Yeah, we would still need like a running list of who those companies are,
Right.
because for us to try to remember that.
Yeah, see, I really, see the Fox Garden and VFW was on the Stellar grant, right?
Mhm.
So our first facade grant was who? Do you remember?
I believe it was Kevin Crotchfeld as part of, Libby's Ice
Yeah,
Cream. They
and the
redid the
cigar shop.
windows and the cigar shop, that
And
same
then
building.
we also helped Mozzie's,
Mozzie's,
Yeah.
yep. Mhm,
and then we done one with the library,
mhm.
and then Crutchfield on his new one.
Correct.
But like, we ought to have a list of them to where we know what date it was done, and,
Oh,
We-
and then we did Studio 309.
oh, yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
that's right.
That was pretty early on, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that Friday, I forgot about
Yeah.
that. Mhm.
I hate to ask what's Studio 309. That's since I'm still new. Yeah, thank you.
But I would like to see more organization on this.
For sure.
And, and like Amy was saying here, the 7 years. I understand what you're saying, but well, for instance, let's just say the VFW, they sell in 5 years. Well, no, that's different. The studio place, okay. We'll say he sells in 6 years. By this, he's supposed to refund the money,
Everything.
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
But you're saying you're just applying it to further
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking like, if it would cost us more to recoup the funds
right,
legally without them just voluntarily handing it
Right.
over, right? Like, that maybe the way that kind of the enforcement of that is if you don't meet these terms,
Mhm.
then we don't give you money again.
Yeah,
Or
I-
we don't give you money for the next
I-
5 years or whatever it is. I
I-
mean,
And why is it 7 years?
the goal was just for people to not take town money and
Yeah.
increase property value and then dump the property. So essentially the
Sure.
town's subsidizing
Yeah.
their projects that aren't really for the community, but are for their personal gain.
Yeah, I get that. I didn't know if there was any importance to a 7. It's just kind of a random.
Yeah, although
Okay.
one thing to consider is for the 7-year clause is what's the value of having it in there to begin with, or to have it for that length of time, to your point. So for example, keep in mind that at the onset of the program, the whole idea was to try to emulate the Stellar facade program, but to use local RDC dollars that can be used more readily and with a lot less red tape. And the 7 years, I think, came from the Stellar program. They required some sort of 7-year easement, I think, on the front of the building. But my point is, if the whole purpose of the facade repair program to begin with is to enhance the way that the town looks, I guess one thing to think about is if that provides somebody, a business owner, a property owner with incentive to fix up their property and they do end up flipping, let's say they do sell it in 6 months or a year. One could argue that the town is still better off in that they took that risk to do it in the first place. Does that make sense? Just something to consider.
I don't disagree. I feel like that was a very heated added bullet point a couple of years ago.
But I think it tells whoever's coming and asking for this, we expect you to stay with your property. And I think that's important to lay out.
Yeah. and I
Or,
mean-
and or do it correctly.
Right.
You make the repairs, not come in
Right.
and be a fly by night.
Right, and I think the purpose is really like, let's invest in our business owners to
Yep.
make the town nicer
Right.
versus investing funds for other people to just profit off of town money.
Right.
I think that's but I
I
mean,
get
I
that.
like, also a great point is that whoever owns it, it still looks nicer.
Yeah.
Which is the point of the facade project. So we may want to play with the 7 years and still try to get some longevity, but maybe 7 years to own a property might be on the steep side.
What I would suggest is, between now and the next meeting per ed, if you could mark this up and, give us everybody, whatever comments you have or things you want to adjust, then, I'll put it as a formal agenda item on the next month. And then you can look to adopt, those revised guidelines. And then after that's done, then we can, turn it over to Alex, and then Alex could just provide a simple agreement, a boilerplate agreement that's used for all the projects. That will at least give it some more, like Alex said, some more legal weight to it than just being in a basic.
And I think a thought on your part, Alex, is who's going to check the taxes and the bankruptcies and the allegations against the town?
Yeah. And I'd even go to who's gonna check, number 8, has to be structural needs code.
Yeah.
We're gonna get an idea on that. Insured contractor. I mean, the last one we saw, they did give us a lot of the 3 quotes and everything. So I think just a detailed you know, who's gonna cover that to make sure it's not just a line item, but it's actually being done.
Right, right.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you bringing this up, Ed. Thank you.
Okay.
I do think on 8 though, that when they're bringing in estimates that have they have
Yeah,
always, you know.
I
we've-
agree.
We've pushed, we've had some that were vague and we kind of sent back to say like, we want itemized. And then in some of the projects, we've removed certain lineup, like we've said, no, this doesn't fall in line with our purpose. And so we've removed certain points and just said we approve us whatever amount that fits those categories. So,
Appreciate all your time and listening and everything. So let's just think about this, and for our new members.
As a newbie, I
maybe
thank you guys for your historical knowledge here. I've learned a lot here in the last 10 minutes, so.
maybe you can put some other good bullets in there.
yeah, I mean, we input, we just kind of went from the Stellar grant to this and it was, our first applicant came in and then we added more stuff and it's been a work in
You learn as
progress.
you go. You learn
That
as
is
you go.
definitely how, how this has gone.
Yeah.
So we'd love more input on it too.
Okay, that's all.
All right. All right. Anyone else have anything?
Like a motion to adjourn.
I loved it.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Seven. Aye.
Aye.
Amy runs a tight meeting.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Alex.
Have a good night.